and welcome to Controversy. I'm your host, Michelle Dabney. Our topic today may prove to be one of our most controversial to date. We have with us a Mr. William Cooper, who is a former U.S. naval officer. He claims to have seen above top-secret U.S. government documents indicating that aliens from outer space are not only on Earth, but that our government has been working with them for over 40 years. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Cooper.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you. I'd like to start by asking you a little bit about your background and how you got involved in all of this.
Well, I was raised in a military family. My father was an Air Force pilot. He's a retired lieutenant colonel now and lives in the state of Texas. I've lived on military bases all over the world. When I left home, I went into the Air Force and served 4 years in the Strategic Air Command as an aircraft and missile and hydraulic technician. I worked on B-52 bombers, KC-135 aircraft, and Minuteman missiles, so I'm well acquainted with the state-of-the-art of the aircraft and aviation industry. I took an honorable discharge from the Air Force, went into the United States Navy. I'd intended to make the military service my life's work, and was reared to believe that you couldn't do anything better than that. While in the Navy, I was trained for naval security and intelligence, and served in Vietnam with naval security and intelligence as a patrol boat captain in the Da Nang Harbor and on the Takan River near the DMZ, where I learned that there was a lot of UFO activity in Vietnam, which was listed in messages and dispatches and in the history as enemy helicopter action. There was no any enemy helicopter action in Vietnam. The North Vietnamese never used helicopters against us, didn't have the capability, and could not have kept them in the air in any case if they had tried.
So that was a cover-up of some sort? Well,
it was just a code word that we used so that if anything got leaked to the press, they would not know what we were talking about. Later, I was attached to the intelligent briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet, who at that time was Admiral Bernard Clary. And during that time, in the course of my official duties, was exposed to the information. I had a top-secret Q clearance. Everything is compartmentalized, and I was cleared for these different areas. Because we had to participate in briefings and had to see the information to compile the briefings for the high-ranking naval officers.
Was this a particular group of people that worked in intelligence that were part of a committee?
No, we were a team.
A team.
Our duty was to come in at around 4 o'clock in the morning, and we would take literally all the intelligence gleaned in the last 24 hours and all the operations that were ongoing at that time, and prepare an updated briefing for high-ranking naval officers and the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, and at times senior government officials at approximately 8 or 9 o'clock that morning. And we would update them as to all the information that had transpired in the last 24 hours, what was expected in the next 24 hours, and foreseeable long-term operations that may be in progress or be scheduled to begin at any point.
Were you told at that time never to talk about anything that was being discussed?
Oh, yes. You are well acquainted with the different rules and regulations and laws concerning security, and you have to sign a security oath, but and that may sound like I'm violating that, and technically I am, but my first and primary oath when I went into the military service was to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These illegal programs that they're hiding behind the guise of national defense are destroying the Constitution of the United States, and it is my primary duty to protect that document because it is this country, above any other obligation or commitment or oath that I may have signed.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the UFO information that you are aware of and what it is about it that has been upsetting you that you feel you must inform the American public about.
Well, basically, what I found out was approximately in 1936, Germany had recovered a crash disk of extraterrestrial origin. They were attempting to capture the technology from this disk and duplicate it. When we went into Peenemünde and other areas in Germany at the close of World War II, we found some of this duplicated technology and some of the actual parts of the original disc that they had recovered, and documents involving this project, and also got some of the scientists. The rest of it the Russians got. We were in the process of studying this material when in 1947 we recovered a disc that crashed in New Mexico, which is probably most people know about by now because it's been the subject of several television exposés, you might say, called the Roswell incident. Basically what happened, what has happened since then in a nutshell, is that there really are extraterrestrials, what are commonly called flying saucers, are technology that belongs to them, which is capable of travel through space and to other stars, actually. That we have met with these beings secretly, that we have made an agreement with them, that we are exchanging technology with them, that the government early on made a decision that they could not tell the American people and therefore could not tell the Congress. The treaty is illegal under the Constitution because it has not been ratified constitutionally by the Senate as is required. The second thing is because they couldn't tell the Congress, they could not get funding from Congress. And if they can't get funding from Congress for these secret black projects, they have to get the money from someplace. And the CIA, a secret CIA within the CIA that works for an organization called MJ-12, which literally is the secret government in control of all of this, has been importing and selling illegal drugs, narcotics, cocaine, heroin, marijuana to the people and to our children to raise money to support these projects. That's why we can't get the drugs off our streets.
Well, we definitely do have a drug problem. There is drug trafficking, but how can you connect that situation with the UFO situation, that it's going to that type of funding? What type of evidence do you have?
Well, the nice thing about this is I don't have to prove anything. Number one, I saw this information with my own eyes. I saw what they were doing in top secret documents. I'm telling the American people, if they choose to do something about it, they can. If they choose to do nothing about it, then they deserve whatever the consequences of that action is.
But if you believe so strongly in it, why don't you get some type of evidence to show people so that people will be more willing to do what they can?
The continuation of what I was just trying to finish was that it has already been proven many, many times over. Every investigation into the source of illegal drugs and narcotics in this country has led right to the doorstep of the CIA, and the Justice Department and the Congress have ignored it. Anyone who goes to their own public library will find more than ample proof right in their own hometown on the shelves of their own library under the section for drugs. They have been at least 10 good books that I know of that have been published linking the CIA directly to drugs. In the Iran-Contra hearings, every time the subject of drugs came up, the chairman of the committee, Senator Daniel Inouye, would silence the conversation and take it behind closed doors so that the American people would not know what was being discussed. Congress won't touch it for some reason.
But certainly the drug trafficking could be going on not for the reasons that you're substantiating it to be. It could be for other reasons as well. Also, the government can create disinformation type schemes that they put into effect in order to hide certain things that are going on. And some people have said that the things you say are a product of disinformation.
Well, they can say that if they want to. I'm telling you that I saw this in the course of my duties over a 3-year period, which involved a lot of high-ranking Navy admirals, high-ranking officials of the government, other people who worked with me. This thing has been going on not just for 40 years, but if you go back into history, you'll find accounts of flying discs in the skies, all the way back through recorded history and into oral history of primitive peoples. You'll find the description of flying shields over Rome. You'll find the description, which is such a perfect example, of a UFO sighting and an encounter by someone with Ezekiel in the Bible. In the ancient Sumerian text, the Mesopotamian text, the other ancient writings that we have discovered.
However, we don't find the kind of connections and claims that you make, such as the government having treaties with these alien beings, and that the government is also doing covert drug trafficking in order to fund this. We don't ever have this type of connection made with any evidence.
That's not true. There's been over 10,000 documents released through the Freedom of Information Act that say that there is a cover-up, that UFOs are real, that they are extraterrestrial in origin, that the government knows about it, and that they're not telling the people. The fact is that you've never seen those documents, and everybody who watches this show has never seen those documents. But if they come and watch one of the presentations that I give, I show them those documents. For 3 hours, I show them proof that cannot be denied. On January the 7th in Las Vegas, I showed over 3 hours, 3.5 hours of documents, films.
I understand that the producer of this show asked that you bring some evidence with you, and you did not.
There's not time to do it in a 30-minute format at all. It just, there's barely time to tell the story and allow you to ask the questions that you have to ask. At the most, you might be able to show one document that would put more questions in people's minds than they would answer. The information is out there. Before we started this little talk here, there was a book on this table called Above Top Secret. There is so much documentation in that book without even looking at the thousands of other documents that would cause any sensible, rational person, responsible person, to say, what is going on here? This book is telling me, with actual documentation, that what Bill Cooper says is true. And I better go start digging myself to find out about it. And that's what I advise people to do. I don't want people to take my word for it. I want them to go out and look at the evidence for themselves. And it's out there.
Why would the government hide it from the American people?
It's very simple. In the beginning, I'm sure they had all the good reasons in the world, and I think they probably made the right choices at that time. Just previous to all of this, the beginning of this, back in the 40s, there was the radio show War of the Worlds that was produced by Mercury Theater, starring Orson Welles, which caused a national panic. There were farmers out looking for somebody to shoot. Some people committed suicide. It really hit the papers all over the nation and caused quite a stir. Also, historically, we know that whenever a superior technological culture has run into an inferior culture, the second culture has disappeared. We know that in every instance that it's happened on this earth alone. We know that to be true. They were afraid that the same thing would happen to us, that it would cause a collapse of our religious structure, that a larger segment of the population would begin to worship the aliens, that the new technology would be such that it would put millions of people out of a job overnight. Can you imagine if we didn't need oil anymore? Could you imagine if we could cure most diseases? Can you imagine what would happen if we didn't need lights like this? How are you going to feed those people who now have no means to support themselves, no work to do, and we can't come up with anything for them to do? They had legitimate concern.
There are other people, such as William Moore. He also speaks a great deal about disinformation.
You used the best example, and I thank you dearly for that, because William Moore, on the evening of July the 1st, 1989, admitted that he was an agent of the United States government, was spying upon researchers, was furnishing reports to the intelligence agency on those researchers, and helped with a disinformation campaign against Paul Bennewitz, Lee Graham, and he says others, which actually put Mr. Paul Bennewitz in a mental institution. So if you want to believe Mr. William Moore about
at least
disinformation.
He's been very honest about it, though, from that point. He did admit that he was involved with the government.
I think he was forced to at that point. He got caught in the act of having actually changed documents, and everybody knew that he had done it. He also was caught showing a Defense Investigative Service ID card to Lee Graham, and told Lee Graham that he was an agent of the government. Lee Graham had put that information out. It was public knowledge. He had no choice at that point because there were too many people banging on his door. But you see, you have proof that he is what he is claiming that I am. I would say you better look again at Mr. Moore and not so hard at me.
See, to me, as someone who has never seen evidence, it's very difficult for me to believe much of this unless I have some sort of proof.
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you to believe Mr. Timothy Good in his excellent book that he wrote. I want you to go out as a responsible citizen. And if you are a responsible citizen, you will. What I suspect will be the case is that you, like many others, probably won't go out and do the research on your own and find out your own answers, because all the answers are out there in the public domain. And responsible citizens, because I'm not the only one saying this. There's Mr. John Lear, there's Bill English, there's Linda Howe, and there have been many others in the books written by Colonel Kehoe in the 50s. He published several excellent books. You will find that his research and the documents that he came up with and actual cases and testimony from government officials and military officials confirm everything that I'm saying.
You mentioned Bill English. There was an article, or a little piece here. This is something that he wrote into this magazine about, I believe it was UFO magazine. And he stated, for the past several months, Bill Cooper has linked my name with his in regards to his own alleged viewing of the elusive Grudge Blue Book Report number 13, claims which I seriously doubt. Several months ago in the UFI NET newsletter, I publicly severed any and all ties to Mr. Cooper. I wish to make the same disassociation here. How do you
I
feel
have no
about that?
association with Mr. Bill English. Mr. Bill English has stated that he saw these documents. He has stated that he saw the same information that I saw. I have letters from him stating in his own handwriting that what I am saying is the absolute truth and matches exactly the documentation that he saw. I am not linking his name with mine. I am merely telling you that he is another person who saw the same information and has stated it publicly. Because of the other things that I'm talking about, maybe he doesn't want to be put in any danger. I don't care. I'm going to state what I know to be the truth, and if he has come publicly stating the same information, I am going to publicly state, for those who don't know it, that he has done so.
What are some other ways in which you feel the government has tried to cover up this UFO project?
One of the documents that I saw stated emphatically that MJ-12 had ordered the assassination of John F. Kennedy because he had found out about the importation and sale of drugs to the American people and had ordered them to stop it. He had also ordered them to implement a plan within the following year to disclose the truth about the alien presence to the American people. He was killed in Dallas. The document stated that the person who administered the coup de grace, the final blow, the blow that killed him to the head, was William Greer, the Secret Service agent driving the car, that he used an assassination pistol developed by the CIA, which is electrically operated, gas-powered. It's a recoilless pistol, which fired an exploding pellet that injected a toxic shellfish poison into the brain, and that Kennedy's brain was removed so that during the autopsy would not show the true nature of the projectile or the toxic shellfish poison.
You know, we have a clip of the film that you often use where you say the gun is moving from the front seat toward the back and shooting Kennedy, and I think they're going to show that now, and we can take a look at that and tell us if this is the same film that you show. And see, in the front is a little white part that goes back. He tends to say that that's a gun shooting Kennedy. However, it's very unclear. Robert Groden, he's an expert photographic analyst, has studied films of the John F. Kennedy assassination for at least 24 years, and he states that he has absolutely no photographic proof that the driver's hands left the wheel while he was driving.
If Mr. Robert Groden says that, I will publicly state right here and now, and he can sue me if he wants to, he is a liar. I have a film that clearly shows William Greer take his hand off the wheel, has a pistol in his left hand, turns around and shoots President Kennedy in the head over his right shoulder. I also saw in the documents that I read while with Naval Intelligence that the act was plainly visible in the film and that the assassin's name was William Greer, the Secret Service agent driving the car. I have the film that shows it.
Grodin is also an independent photographic analyst, as are many that have studied the John F. K. assassination from all over the world, and none of them, as independent analysts, have ever made this connection.
I can't account for their actions. I can tell you what I saw, what I know, and what I have. And I have shown the film that I have to thousands of people who all have seen it and acknowledge it and were shocked and are angry that the government has withheld this because it's obvious that they've known it all along.
Well, we have the same shot here in color. And I think it's more evident in color that the little shiny thing that appears to be a white gun to you in the other film is the reflection off the gentleman's head in the passenger seat.
Not at all. In fact, Kellerman, the passenger in the front seat, is actually leaning forward, and you can see his head is completely beneath the weapon, and you can see William Greer's arm like this. He's not holding the wheel, and that proves Mr. Grodin totally off base. And if you can't see it in this film, because it's really not going as slow as we have slowed it down in the film that we have, I can assure you that you will see it in the film that I have.
Even ballistically, though, when someone is shot at such a close range, it has a different effect.
You have to understand that this is not a weapon that is normally used. It's not a normal pistol. It is an electrically operated, gas-powered, recoilless weapon that was created by the CIA solely for close-range assassinations. Period. It will not conform to the normal ballistics of a pistol that has a powder charge and fires a lead projectile. Mm-hmm. That's why they had to remove Kennedy's brain in transit and replace it with another brain that showed very little damage from any kind of a bullet whatsoever. And in the autopsy report, the doctors state that it had already been severed at the spinal cord. That's why they had to remove that brain, because they knew that it would not demonstrate the ballistics of any of the projectiles that would have been fired from Oswald's gun, and would have disclosed the true nature of the weapon, and would have disclosed the shellfish poison, which would have pointed a neon arrow right at the CIA.
How did you come to gather this information?
Well, I've said it 3 times already. I'll say it once more in case you're a little hard of hearing. I was on the intelligence briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet.
Until when?
Between 1970 and 1973.
Okay, so that all became evident to you then, but not prior at any time?
Not prior at any time, no. Mm-hmm. In fact, up until then, I had no knowledge whatsoever of any of this.
You do not feel that you could be perhaps a product of disinformation by the government?
Not at all. If you were going to put out disinformation, would you send somebody out to say that you're a drug dealer? Would you send somebody out to say that you killed your father? I don't think so. And I don't think that anybody who worked for the government at a level that I would be on to do this would consent to doing anything like that, because they'd be cutting their own throat.
You don't think sometimes they throw something so absurd out and someone catches on to it and begins to believe it, and it distracts people's attention away from what they don't want them to see?
Not only that, there are thousands of people all over the world who are coming forward stating that they've been abducted. All the stories are the same. They don't know each other. Most of them have never read a book about UFOs, don't know anything about it. They have been tested. They show no signs of psychosis. There is no pattern to them. They come from all walks of life. There are literally millions of people who have seen flying discs in the sky and know that it's not swamp gas, know that it wasn't the planet Venus. They know that it was intelligently guided. They watched it. They're credible people, doctors, lawyers, members of government, members of the military, bag ladies, all from all walks of life and all spectrums. Credible people that if they testified in court that you murdered Joe, Joe would go to the electric chair. But if they testify in court that they saw this thing in the sky, they're laughed at. And that's hypocritical, and it's baloney, and it's got to change.
There are many more people who believe that, who believe in UFO sightings, that they are valid and such, and that there may be aliens coming and going and abducting. I think more people believe that than believe what you say, that we have treaties with these alien beings, and there's a lot of undercover things that are going on, and the government is fully aware of it.
Why is that so hard to believe? If we found a new country on this world right now that had advanced technology and the capability to blow us up if they want to, don't you think we'd make a treaty with them?
We also have a very successful space program. We have the shuttle. How do you feel about that? Do you think we're actually more technologically advanced because of these aliens' help?
We're much more technologically advanced. The space program is a way to funnel money into the secret space program, which I can prove exists, and is exactly what you're talking about. Something to take the public's eye away from what's really happening and keep them pleasantly entertained with a successful space program, which, by the way, isn't that successful. Why did we quit going to the moon? What happened to the Challenger? You know, we've lost an awful lot of hardware and explosions on launch pads and the unsuccessful attempts, and we've lost a lot of lives. I wouldn't call it that successful. We went to the moon, yes, that was great. When we stopped going to the moon was, if that was the real space program and we stopped going to the moon, it's totally irresponsible. The fact that we stopped going to the moon points to that we were doing something else, because that is the next frontier.
Right. I'd like to thank you for being on the show. It was very interesting. Enjoyed talking with you. And join us again next time for Controversy. I'm your host, Michelle Dabney.